information and the data that's associated with it, the assets and workforce and that kind of thing. So we're doing a deep dive, but deep dive in terms of a 30-minute time slot here. So our goal here is, we're going to talk about all the assets of the region, the utilities, the transportation, workforce, connectivity, industrial sites, industrial parks, that kind of thing. So I won't read that slide for you, but this is kind of where we're headed with this, because when we talk about this, and for those who haven't seen an economic development presentation, which probably isn't many of y'all in here, but in case you haven't seen one, most of what I'm going to cover here is what a lot of economic development organizations will cover for their own city or for their own jurisdiction. Ours happens to be 7 counties, so we're going to go ahead and cover that. Again, deep dive. We can get you a copy of this if you like. This is actually 26 pages. I don't know that I'll have time to go through all of them, but I may. But there's 26 pages to this. This is the table of contents. The takeaway I want you to get from this before I move on is what COSTEP is doing from a regional perspective, what our efforts are comprised of, and how we leverage this information in our attraction efforts. So, there we are. There's the Rio South Texas region, the place we all call home, right? And then, there we go. So, the Rio South Texas region, that's where we're at in the global sphere, right? And I know everybody, we all call it home, and we all get to the point where we wonder, it's like, well, how do we really play in the global marketplace? And this is kind of exemplifies how we play in this global marketplace just by our location and jurisdiction. On the Gulf of Mexico, and I'll get into the connectivity here in a second, but we have sufficient and a lot of connectivity between the Pacific coast and Gulf of Mexico in terms of bringing goods and services into the area. So the Rio South Texas region, again, I mentioned strategic location. Strategic location, we are strategically located near the border of northern Mexico, a prime destination, and I won't read all that for you, but I will tell you, some of our efforts, or a lot of our efforts, really focus on speaking with site selectors and companies that are looking to move to the area. So the first thing I tell most of those folks when I talk to them is we're perfectly situated in a border area because we're located on the U.S.-Mexico border. And more often than not, they automatically pick up on that advantage. They see like, okay, all right, I kind of know where you guys are at. I haven't really spoken to anybody from that area, so I'm glad you called. The reason I bring that out is because we're sitting in a good position here that we're not starting from, ground zero in terms of getting the message out or knowing who we are. Here's the Rio South Texas region. I know everybody knows these cities, but I'll go ahead and cover those for those who maybe aren't familiar, but there's a lot, right? In COSTEP, we're a little bit different than some other perhaps regional agencies throughout the state or the country. Ours is a 7-county jurisdiction. We have the unique advantage of we have rural counties in our jurisdiction, including and also Wilson County, of course Laredo, and more importantly is the municipios on the other side of the border. The reason these are important because these have a huge strategic advantage in terms of bringing operations to the area, in terms of workforce, logistics, that kind of thing. Again, here's a list of the cities. There's lots of them here. I have met with just about every economic development professional, director in all of these cities at one point or another. Myself and Adam kind of did a road show, and met with all these professionals just to kind of gauge where they're at and what they're trying to accomplish and how we can fit in and how we can help them. And of course, you have the cities on the Mexico side, Urabo, Villahermosa, Matamoros, Camargo, Gustavo, and Miguel Alemán. All important things. And the reason is some of these cities are smaller, right? And so you're thinking like, well, how does that really come into play? It comes into play just like it does on this side. I know some of you may be familiar with, in the last couple of years, we've had some issues with perhaps cross-border, not trade, but cross-border transportation, vehicles being stuck on the other side of the bridge for a myriad of reasons, right? It created kind of a unique phenomenon because a lot of those vehicles that were, instead of waiting in line for 3 or 4 hours at some of the bigger ports of entry, were using Miguel Alemán and Camargo and some of the other ports for crossing. It's, you use the logic. I can stand in line, I can sit in line here with my truck for 4 hours, or I can spend an hour driving down the road and being crossover, right? So that actually had a positive effect because a lot of these smaller cities are now actually stronger players in the whole scheme of things because they're now ready to start crossing truck traffic over also. Again, I use this for information, not necessarily for lecture purposes, but more than anything, when I present this information to a site selector, it gives them an idea of the sheer population of the area and the region. More often than not, people will tell us like, well, we thought San Antonio was South Texas. We all know that San Antonio is the very northernmost part of South Texas, right? But we are the true South Texas. These numbers exemplify strength, let's just say they're strength in numbers, right? So when you see the sheer number of people that actually live in the area, all of a sudden it's not, well, geez, these guys aren't in the wild, wild west. They're not driving tractors to work every day. They're not riding horses. It's not all farmland, nothing against farmers. I'm a country boy at heart. But the number and the population exemplifies what we bring to the table in terms of a population. Once again, the cities, we have some connectivity numbers here in terms of transportation. Laredo to Rio Grande City is 110 miles, it's about 2 hours. Rio Grande City to Brownsville is about 100 miles, an hour and 45. Laredo to Brownsville is 3 hours and 20 minutes. So we're a huge region, but if you look at all the cities in that region, we're all pretty well connected. Yeah, there's some expanses of empty land in some of these areas, but still. The vast expanses of land, I'll get to that in a second because that's also an advantage in our part. Some of the international bridges, we have several, and Mexico Industry did an excellent job with the color coding there, so you know which can cross commercial traffic and which cannot. But I also use this because this is a huge logistical advantage that we have. The sheer number of crossing points is huge. One, for the reason I just mentioned, when we run into issues where vehicles are getting stuck at one port of entry, for whatever reason, there's several other options to choose from. And because of what has happened in the past few years, if a large commercial truck pulls into one of the smaller ports, it's no longer like, what are you doing here? We don't see truck traffic here ever. That's not the case anymore. Everybody's used to seeing truck traffic in some way, shape, or form. Main highways, and I love this map here because this is the connectivity. One, you see Manzanillo, Las Alcabunas, Mazapan. These are all direct routes from the Pacific Coast to the Rio Grande Valley. They go to Monterrey. They go to the new Puente de Guayabarte, which is the highest suspension bridge, tallest suspension bridge in Mexico, or in the world, I believe. Created a direct route through the state of Sinaloa. And it gets you your connectivity to all the major cities, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, and then from there on up, even gets you to the automotive sector up in Detroit. It's a good, interesting thing to know because I'll get to this in a second in terms of rail, but I know years ago when I lived in Austin, I would see vehicle parts transported by rail on the train track, the railroad track that I lived near, and it was almost a nightly occurrence. They were going to a plant in Arlington, but some people told me that some of those parts were going up to Detroit. So these are good things to know, good information to have. Here's your highway connection. Tons of them. I know some of us sitting in here already know this stuff, but for those who don't, our highway connectivity here is pretty good. It's excellent, as a matter of fact. If you consider we're state of Mexico and the connection points and how it gets us close to interstate travel within the state, it's a huge advantage for us here in the area. We have some travel times there on the side. And of course, we realize things don't just go from Mexico here. We send things from Mexico back. We send some things United States down to Mexico. So this is all important to know, and I'll get into some other advantages of this connectivity here in a second. We have some airports. Here in the past few weeks, I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to visit with a couple of our major airports in the area. Some, on this side of the valley. I know a lot of our airports are expanding. Wesco is listed in here. They don't have commercial airline traffic, but you can land a passenger aircraft in that area. They're expanding. They have new hangar space there. The Edinburgh Airport is also expanding. They're lengthening their runway, so it's opening up a lot of doors for commercial or cargo traffic, which is a huge concern. Some of the people I've talked to that are interested in bringing stuff via air cargo, the first thing they ask me is like, how long is your runway? So this is nothing new to any of the aviation directors that I've spoken to because they're all keenly aware that the runway length and space is a huge concern. every single one of them that I've spoken to right now is looking to lengthen their runway to help increase those opportunities. On top of that, Brownsville, Harlingen, they have actual commercial space, industrial space that they're trying to market as well. The Weslaco Airport is near a couple of industrial parks in Weslaco, 10-minute, 20-minute, 15-minute drive from the newest industrial park in Weslaco. And it's also situated near the interstate, as all the other airports are. The connectivity with these is excellent. And the fact that they're situated near industrial areas, industrial parks is even a better advantage for everybody. Off of this side, you have some air connectivity, and of course Laredo International Airport, and anybody in this area probably within a 2-hour drive of that airport. We have some departures here. These are the DHL, FedEx. We have the carriers listed here. We put these in here for recruitment purposes. It's so that people know that if, I'm gonna go set up shop in the Rio South Texas area, how do I get my stuff in and out? Through airplane, right? And here are your carriers. I'm bringing my family with me. We want to take vacation. Well, guess what? Allegiant has straight flights to a number of destinations. Below does, Delta does. So this is a very healthy air traffic network that we have here. We have a sea connection here. There's a couple of ports that we haven't mentioned. One, there's a very, very small port called, it's in Port Mansfield. We don't mention it here. They're still in the initial stages of getting some commercial traffic going there, but I do know that they are looking to increase some kind of commercial activity there in Port Mansfield. Great fishing. If you haven't been fishing in Port Mansfield, you're missing out. So, I mean, they're known for that, and I hope that they stay known for that, but they are trying to create those opportunities for themselves. Go back to that. So, Port of Matamoros is in development. Port of Harlingen, I've had the opportunity to visit with them a few times over the past few weeks and a couple of months. They have 5 docks. This is an inland port. An inland port, it's a very shallow draft, meaning the barges that go in there, they can only go in 10, 12 feet of water. It's not ideal for some cargo, but for a lot of cargo, it's sufficient. And it lends itself to proximity because Harlingen is in this area and it's close to highway, and they also have rail access to that. Port of Brownsville is excellent. They just broke ground on a new industrial park there. They have rail access. They have obviously water access. They accept the bigger barges. They're going to increase the draft of that, or the depth of that channel to 52 feet, which will increase a lot of opportunity for them in terms of cargo. As a side note, I believe the JFK, which is the next aircraft carrier, historic aircraft carrier to be disassembled, is on its way down. I'm not sure when it'll get here. Last I heard is sometime in December. But if you've never had a chance to go see one of the aircraft carriers as they're being transported to the Port of Brownsville, it's kind of a sight to see. It's a sight to behold. But the port access, I'm going to mention one more thing about port access right now. A lot of the companies that I've spoken to in the past month or so, a couple of months, these ports are huge, especially the Port of Brownsville. It is a huge advantage for us because transporting by barge is much more cost efficient than it is by rail or truck. There's a time difference there, obviously. It's going to take you more time by barge. But if you plan your logistics out and the barge is a good option for you, the Port of Brownsville has proven themselves to be a good partner in that aspect. And of course, railroad. And of course, Laredo enjoys one of the most busy railroad crossings in the United States. Tons of traffic moving through there. And for those, Laredo is just a logistics powerhouse in the region. It's just the sheer amount of cargo and merchandise and shipments going through that city is just incredible on a daily basis. But we wanted to show the rail access because, again, just like the Port of Brownsville and the water access, rail access is becoming more and more important as well. For cost reasons, for all kinds of other reasons. Of course, we have the railroads listed there, BNSF, CPKC, and of course on the Mexican side. And we've had brief meetings with them, but everything looks positive in terms of working relationship with the railroads. And there's your connectivity there. Much like the highway connectivity, there's a ton of railroad connectivity in Mexico. And again, it goes by the major ports of Las Vegas and some of the other major ports that are in the Mexican region. They're vital. Las Vegas, that port became a little popular last year or a couple years ago when The longshoreman issue in the ports in California became an issue when barges were just, or ships were just kind of moored and anchored down on the coast of the Pacific because they couldn't find places to unload. That was the next option, is they would move the ship down to Las Cruces for unloading, and then they would move the cargo that way. Important for us because, once again, we are not just a viable option, but we're a viable solution for moving that cargo in terms of logistics. And of course, here we are with the industrial parks, and we have a lot of them. And I know there's some that are under construction right now. I know that Wesco got a brand new one, City of McAllen's, I believe, bought some property on some, and I know Laredo has a ton of them. We have them listed here for one reason only. We want those interested from a corporate perspective or a site selector perspective to know that they have options here in the area. And of course, these are the names of all the industrial parks. There's, like I mentioned, there's a ton of them here. They all vary in size and capacity in terms of acreage, and warehouse space, and that kind of thing. But I think you'd be hard pressed to find a industrial park here, or let me rephrase that. I think if you had an interest in industrial space, I think you would have a hard time not finding sufficient space here in the region. I know that the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, and I think the county judge's office, they have a study going on. They're trying to assess what some of the primary industries would be for the Rio Grande Valley. We're running off of some historic data on this. We're excited to see that because we want to be able to capitalize on that information also. Currently, these are the industries that are housed here. They call it the Rio South Texas region home. So you have your automotive, your electric, electronic, your aerospace, medical, and of course, we'll go into, not in depth, but we just want to show some presence, right? So when I present this information to corporates out there, perhaps there's another automotive company is like, well, we've never heard of Rio South Texas, and who else is down there? And it's right there. It's right there in front of them to see. So it helps. The electronic, obviously there's a lot of companies here. We mentioned 93 companies here. Just a few bullet points of the products that they produce. And of course, LG, a friend of mine used to work there. Motorola is still huge. These are very, very common household names. Black & Decker, Jabil, household names, and they're situated right here. I know Black & Decker is just down the road. I believe Decker was in here somewhere, but that's kind of his back right there. Aerospace, as funny as it may sound, this was before even SpaceX showed up, that some of these companies were in existence here. I know somebody asked me today, well, that's just because SpaceX has moved there, that you have this aerospace bullet in there. It's like, no, these companies were operating already before SpaceX got here. No doubt that SpaceX helped in that development, and we hope that SpaceX continues to help in this development in terms of this industry. We'll do whatever we can to help that. But there is an aerospace presence here in the area, and of course, you can't not mention them. For anybody who's interested, the next launch I believe is scheduled for Friday right now. I don't have an exact time on that, but those are interesting to watch also. And of course, medical. We are kind of a hotbed for medical technology here in terms of there's BSN Medical and Freeness Medical Care Medline. As you see, the wheelchairs, medical device industry is huge. I'm sure everybody here, it's not any secret to you all, but medical device and medical attachments and medical parts, that kind of thing is huge. As we grow older as a population, the demand for these things is going to increase. And we suspect that we'll start seeing more interest in the area from this type of company. Again, I can't go on without mentioning our education backbone here. I know in previous positions I had a good working relationship with U.S. Economic Development Administration, EDA, and I remember we would have significant discussions about just regional assets and what the region brings to the table. Regardless of where you're in or what region you're in, the first thing the EDA is going to ask you is, okay, what's your education backbone look like? Who are your education partners? And I know everybody looks at Austin as, the powerhouse of development and high tech and all that kind of thing. Austin would not be where it's at if it wasn't for the University of Texas being right there in town, right? That's just my opinion. I don't have any data to back that up, but I live there and I can vouch for the fact that because UT is in town, it helped attract talent and help develop the talent for that industry. We've had several meetings with a lot of these education institutions, and I can tell you right now, they're on board with the economic development landscape. They're willing to help however they can. vital partners, and they have a lot of really good programs going to help with workforce, with technology, with innovation, you name it. So I would be remiss if we did not mention them, but they are a huge, huge partner of ours here in the Rio Grande Valley and in Laredo region. And of course, I mentioned healthcare. We're all getting older. I know I was talking to somebody earlier. I am too. I wish I wasn't, but that's just the way life works. If you were looking to bring a company down to the area and you were wondering like what's life down there, I'm bringing my elderly parents with me. What's healthcare like? I think we exemplify a pretty healthy healthcare system. No pun intended, healthy healthcare. But anyway, a robust healthcare system that we have here in the area, and I think it works well. And it works in our favor in terms of attraction. I believe that's my last slide. I don't think I took all 35 minutes, not even close. So I'm open for questions, discussion. I know everybody's enjoying your lunch right now. If you have no questions, I will be here for the duration of the event. I'll be here, there, everywhere, and around. So feel free to come up to me and chat. I'm open for any kind of discussion or questions y'all may have. Questions? All right.
I'd like to do one little thing that I missed earlier. If we could have some introductions here on the table, I would appreciate that. I'd also like to recognize two of my board members, that put in a lot of hard hours, and they as they always say, when are we going to get paid? They serve without pay. They serve out of the kindness of their heart because they believe in what we do. Mr. Jim Darling, our board chair, and Ms. Rose Benavides, the board member. So we could start at this end of the table, I think, with you, Daniel, and introduce yourself and who you're with, and then we'll just go down the line.
My name is Daniel Uribe. I'm with Workforce Solutions. I've been in the workforce system for about close to 20 years. My expertise is in data collection and